Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwukta.
This is Merps, and today we have a special guest with us today. None other than Boozor TV, who got number one in NA Arenas last month. Welcome, Boozor. Thank you so much for being on with us, man.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a really great opportunity. Thank you.
Nice. Great opportunity. I like this. I like him already. Boozor, wait, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So you guys spelled my name wrong in the. You guys spelled my name wrong in the special guest. It's Bozor TV.
Bozor. Oh,
Yeah.
so it has nothing to do with Carlos Boozor, the NBA player.
I was just gonna say, because okay, all right. So a subset question to that, Boozor. After you did that, I was gonna be like, so how did you get your name? Because Adwukta, if you guys don't know, he is a hardcore Utah Jazz fan, and one of his favorite players of all time was Carlos Boozor.
That's really not one of my favorite players of all time.
No.
But he was on the Jazz for a very long time.
No, you love Carlos Boozor. Don't try to retcon this, man. So I was curious because for me, especially now, whenever I see Boozor, I immediately think of Carlos Boozor, and I know Adwukta thinks the same thing as well. So I'm guessing it has nothing to do with that.
No, it's nothing to do with that. It's actually a play on the Simpsons episode where the gambling evil god took over Marge, and then Homer called him Gambler. And then I guess in high school, my friends always, we go out house parties and drinking and stuff, and then they would say that, oh, Boozor got him, like, the drinking evil demon god or whatever. So it just stuck, and I just kept it.
I like it. It's
awesome.
Kind of interesting how like these random sort of like words and names that we pick up when we're like really young, we just use them as our tags, right? Like Adwukta's is a secretive acronym that no one will know about, made from middle school. Right?
Okay, 1,200 subs, and it all is revealed.
That'll never happen with our channel these days. And Merps was just, I don't even remember what game it was, but it was one of those like dumb browser games and you needed to make a name. I was just like, oh, Merps. And then I just kept on using it. But anyways, now the mystery is over, and hopefully, Boozor, I will stop thinking about Carlos Boozor whenever I see you on the forums or lurking your channels.
Yeah,
but
I've
anyways,
definitely seen your name so often and like exchange like a lot of like conversation on Twitter, on Reddit and whatever. And in my head, it's always been Boozor. Like I just automatically replace the E with the O. I mean, it's not the first time I do that with a word, but it's crazy to me because this has been like years, right?
Very common mistake. Very common mistake.
All right, so Boozor, once again, huge congratulations, man. That is awesome. Number one NA. You did a huge write-up about it, right?
Yeah, I felt I wanted to say something about it, just because honestly, just like the feelings are unreal, right? And I think the best way for me to do it was to maybe detail out my whole path to getting number one and maybe share some of those good feelings with everyone. It's like, honestly, it's just unreal. I mean, it's, I'm placing number one on a video game. So it can only be so unreal in real life. But I mean, since you put so many hours into it.
It's number one out of how many players, right? Like, and the top players are usually the ones going for the leaderboard too. So it's quite an accomplishment. I remember like, when Merps got number one, I felt like it was unreal. I didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, you would ask me every once in a while. It's like, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm so tired. He's like, good, keep it up.
Yeah. It's, it's a great feeling, and everyone has been super supportive, and I had a lot of people cheering me on along the way. So it definitely felt good when 3 weeks into September or 2 weeks into September, they finally released it. So a lot of it's pretty stressful, like, because people are like rooting you on, and I thought I had a good shot at it. So yeah.
Right. I wanted to ask this as well. Did you know you were going to be number one, or did you think you had a good shot at it?
I mean 8.8. I figured it would be at minimum would be top 5. I haven't heard too much around the community about people with really ridiculous win rates. So I thought maybe I had a good shot. Like I know Dreads had a more average month for him, which was like 7.5. So I was
What
like,
a
oh, so
noob.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, if Dreads is the benchmark, maybe like other people are struggling as well. Which made me felt like my average was kind of like really insane. I'm like, how am I doing this? Like kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. So it's been fun.
So
Yeah.
which ended up being the time period for those 30 runs?
It was the start of Boomsday actually.
Mhm.
I basically started Boomsday with 3 consecutive 12-win
Yeah.
runs. And
Mhm.
then and that was it.
Yeah.
I did my 30 and luckily I finished my 30 about on the 28th, so 2 days before the end of the month.
Oh
So
wow. That's a
yeah,
tight
so
30. That's not
it's a tight 30.
that's not like you're playing like 90 games and taking a 30 streak. Like that was it.
It
You
was a tight
couldn't
30,
even
yeah.
rewrite it because if you played
The,
more game afterwards, you would be overwriting your first 3 12 wins. So
yeah,
it would you
so
just had those 30 games. Nice.
yeah. I did the first 2 weeks, like obviously with the previous like Witchwood expansion.
Mhm.
So my average wasn't bad, even including the first 2 weeks
Yeah.
of the month. But definitely I hit my stride
Mhm.
in the last week of August, and luckily I was able to maintain it at least. Because my average was about 9.8 over 18. So
Damn.
I was flirting with a really really insane average, but it's not sustainable, right? So the next 12 it dropped a little bit.
Yeah,
um,
and the meta gets harder. Like I remember that that first week was a bit softer, and then like 2 weeks after that, it was like, ah, I'm not getting like it stopped being like, oh, I could probably get 10 wins with this deck, even though it's like a little shaky, and started feeling more like a normal like kind of the initial burst of people playing Boomsday is over.
I kind of feel that way right now. It feels like people have adjusted pretty well.
Yeah.
So I expect the leaderboard to be a little bit tougher this month, I think.
Nice. All right, so Boozor, the one of the main reasons we wanted to get you on was, like we said last week, I just think you have a really unique perspective and a really interesting story when it comes to the leaderboard. Because, and hopefully this isn't too sort of like dismissive or something, but your path wasn't the easiest, right? It wasn't like, you came onto the scene and you just like crushed the arena and this was just sort of like a formality. You really had some struggles along the way. So, I was hoping you could kind of tell us a little bit about that. And I know this is in your write-up as well, but this goes all the way back to like 2016, right?
Yeah. So basically, like when I started playing Hearthstone a bit casually when it first started, like when it first launched, right? And I got into Arena around just before the first expansion. I don't remember which one it was, Naxxramas. But
Mm.
it's obviously really hard back then. Like I was struggling to hit like 3-win average, but I didn't take it too seriously. So maybe like the first 2,000, 2,500 like arena wins. So that's a lot of runs.
Yeah, that's already a ton.
It's a lot of runs. I started to be like, hey, I should track my stuff and try to get better because this is a way to sustainably play the game without having to spend money, right? Because you're spending money every expansion or what have you. It's hard, right? It just kind of takes the fun out of the game too. So it's a bit of a challenge for myself. So I sought to improve in Arena. So I look for guides. So the first person that came to mind that was really big at the scene at the time was Trump. So
Yeah.
everyone knows Trump, Trump's tier list, whatever. And then
Mm-hmm.
afterwards it was you guys, the Grinning Goats, right? So obviously the Lightforge tier list, and it was really helpful, and just getting over that 3-win hump. So after I developed, maybe get more experience, after about a year, my average is about 5, but I couldn't really improve, and I found that the only reasons I was winning was basically like OP classes with OP cards, like
Mm-hmm.
like mage, mage, flame strike, blizzard, all the AOE's. You just crush people, and then you had paladin with keeper of Oldemons and stuff like that. So like outside of these classes, like I just couldn't play the game properly. So I knew I need some help playing the other classes, but it's kind of hard to reach out to people and learn that way. So that's why like forums were really helpful, and I thought another way to do it was to track like drafts and replays and ask for help. That's kind of how you learn, right? You review your own stuff. So like I was saying, like, I was about 5 win average for about a year. I documented it in 2016, and it took me about 9 months before I got my first like month of like 7 wins. And these are basically self-documented runs, right? So back in the day, there's no leaderboards, and there's no like realistic way for you to track your stuff except you tracking it yourself, and then you tracking your own progress, which is, it seems kind of dumb right now, right? It's just, oh, we have leaderboards now. But I remember it was a slog, right? It was a
in
slog.
The dark days, it felt
Yeah, the
kind of
dark days.
weird to be tracking your own runs. It's like, why am
Yeah.
I doing this when Blizzard very clearly is saying, don't do it. We're not going to support this. Like, we're not supporting anything like this. And meanwhile, there's like, software websites online, and you're just like, yeah, I have 1 win here. Oh, next game, I won this one. Like,
Yeah.
it felt a little weird, but it was very vital to improve, because that's how you review, that's how you share stuff, that's how you figure out patterns, and all that good stuff.
So, Boozor, wait. Okay, so I'm gonna stop you here because I have a few follow-up questions, because I think this is really important for our listeners. You talked about you being a 3-win average player and then to a 5-win. But what I really find interesting is your journey from a 5-win to a 7-win, and you talked a lot about self-evaluation and using forums. Can we break that down a little bit? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? It's somewhat easy to go from 3 wins to 5 wins, I think. It's definitely a little bit tougher. And the gains and sort of the strategy involved becomes a little bit more amorphous, right? You can't exactly just sort of pinpoint exactly sort of wrong plays, exactly what you're doing wrong. But what did you do to get better? So you talked about using forums. How exactly did you use forums?
So I think for a 3-win player, I think most people at 3 wins generally have a very good grasp of maybe one class, 1 or 2 classes, and obviously they have a very decent grasp of like basic mechanics, trading, looking for lethal, stuff like that, right? What does what? So as you progress to like 5 wins, I feel like you get better with your singular strong class while adding more classes to your good good playability classes or whatever. So I feel like as you progress, you need to increase the amount of classes that you are actually more comfortable with. So I feel like when I hit 5, I was probably good with only 2 classes, Mage, which everyone is good at the time because Mage is just OP. And then the other class was probably Paladin. I was okay with the other classes, but I definitely didn't feel comfortable with more than half of them. The big jump for me was when I was at 5 or 5.5, and I learned how to play Rogue. Rogue was always a good class in Arena, but I never played Rogue in Constructed. I never played Rogue in Arena. I had no idea how to play Rogue. So I took about 300 runs or 300 games. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember the number was 300. Basically just picked Rogue every single time, played it, learn the mechanics of it, learn what to do with it, learn how to win, learn how to not lose to Rogue. And now it's my best class. I play it all the time, and it's been my best class ever since that, 300, I think 300 game, probably 300 games. 300 runs sounds too crazy, but so it's probably 300 games of just practice, right? So at that time, I was probably like a 5.5 win player overall, but with Rogue, I was probably like a 3 win player just with basic mechanics. And then eventually I learned, and Rogue was my best class, even towering over my 5.5 average. So it definitely carried my average too. So I think for players to learn, you have to experiment, right? And if you want to speed up your experiment, I think getting advice from better players via forums, using your own replays, getting advice, drafting advice, getting maybe like theory advice, watching like YouTube, watching streams. Those are basically getting advice from better players, doing things that are better than you. Like it definitely helps you speed it up, right? So I felt like anyone that wanted to get better at Arena definitely needs to look reach for these resources because they're out there, right? So that's how I felt like this is the best use of my time. So, I use forums. So, Reddit, Hearthstone. I use the official Battle.net forums. Just whoever wanted to chat. I would make friends, add friends. Maybe get a spec here and there, and then maybe ask questions, stuff like that, right? So I definitely spent a lot of time just trying to get better at the game.
Wait, you
just trying to
use the
learn, right?
official Battle.net forums?
This
And
this
that
was
was helpful in any way?
this was back in the day. There was maybe one or two helpful people still on that forum.
Okay. No, that's impressive. I mean, that's dedication because I've been on that forums when I was looking for information and whatever, and it was, I mean, it's a slog. And like
Yeah.
you like put your head down and went through it and grabbed the like pieces there that were helpful.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty bad right now, but back in the day, it was probably one or two helpful posters.
nice, nice. But yeah, like what you said before about how you were expanding into Rogue, and that was really important. Not just because Rogue is a really good class and it makes you a better player and you learn a different class, like the actual technical part of this increases my win rate because I have more options. But also, even as you're playing Rogue, you were talking about how you were beating Rogues more because you were playing Rogue, and now you knew exactly what the Rogue's weaknesses are. You knew
Exactly.
if the opponent Rogue did X and Y, that means they didn't have like this card or that card or this type of card. And it's
Yep.
stuff that I'm sure like someone could like map out really precisely with all the cards, but you kind of just have to play a bit and then you get your reads a bit better, especially with a class like Rogue where your first like 3 turns in the mulligan does so much work for you for the entire rest of for the rest of the game. So when you learn
Yep.
how to not just set up your first couple turns, but to read the first couple turns from your rogue
Exactly.
opponent, you can really get that advantage. And back then it was like what, at any particular time there were 4 good classes, maybe 1 or 2 of them were OP, and then the rest were kind of like you play it if you're like I want to play all classes like we did, but you didn't play it like to be like I want to get number 1. Whereas these days, at least towards the second half of the meta, like whenever Blizzard does this rebucketing and this like this tier class adjustment, which hasn't been done yet for Boomsday, but whenever they do it, it's gonna even out again, right? That's their whole philosophy. So you can really do this now, like what you did with Rogue, with pretty much any class. And given how much it helps you improve, like you should be doing it with pretty much every class at some point if you're a 5-1 player trying to get to 7.
Yeah, it's I mean, you can easily like specialize in like any class, right? You just get better at anything you just do more often. So, but I feel like definitely like expanding my knowledge into Rogue, definitely it's carryoverable because Rogue is never bad in any meta. So, and it's a complex class because it requires a lot of decisions every turn, right? Usually, mainly around the hero power and when to use your high tempo cards. So it does make you a bit better just getting better at one class. But Rogue, I feel like by getting better in Rogue, it made me a lot better in all the other classes as well. Because Rogue is always a tough customer in Arena. So like even just figuring out how to beat them more, consistently, it was useful that way too, right? So, but I think like, so going from like like 5.5, 6 win player and then trying to get to 7, I feel like the biggest gap there is probably like coin play, going second, like basically trying to win more going second. Mulligan, your mulligan, knowing when to mulligan more aggressively, having a game plan when you're mulliganing, and this is deck dependent too. So, and then I think small adjustments in your drafting, those little things probably help you go from 6 to 7 more consistently. But like these things, it's hard to really teach, and a lot of it is deck
It is.
dependent, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say the thing that I like the message like the most important message from the story that you told, I think, is just the way that you completely devoted yourself to learning, right? And you laid out this process like, okay, I suck at Rogue, I need to be better at Rogue, like this is what is stopping me from becoming a better player, so I'm gonna just throw myself like to this task and take my lumps, right? I remember in your write-up as well, you were just like, yeah, it wasn't like you picked up Rogue and immediately did well. Like, you struggled for a little bit, right? Like, and that was it. It's like you struggled a little bit and you go back and then you struggled a little bit more, and you go back, and you keep on going back until it made you like a better player. And I think this is something that this is an area where people get stuck as well, because people don't like, kind of like, winning a decent amount, which is what a 5.5 win player does.
Mm-hmm.
And then being like, yeah, I'm going to get my butt kicked for a month straight, right? Which is just what kind of has to happen. Like when you're learning a new class, you have to play that class over and over and over again until you get all of the nuances. But if it's one of your weaker classes, you are just going to lose a lot more than you're comfortable with. So it like you have to get out of your comfort zone. And it seemed like you really embraced that. You're just going to be like, no, I am going to keep at this until I am a master at it.
Yeah. Well, it helps that Rogue is actually a pretty fun class to play. So I mean, it's an exercise in patience too, and it ended up working out. So sometimes it doesn't work out, but I mean, it worked out, and the skills are obviously transferable over time and over metas and stuff. So it's always going to be the same, right? Like I was saying, like basically when Karazhan came out and it was all Firelands portals, like Mage, Fireland portal, it just got really repetitive and it just wasn't really fun. So at that point I took a break for about 10 months. I missed 3 expansions. I came back near the end of Knights of a Frozen Throne.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like things were kind of like, it's a lot different, right? Like there's the leaderboard, and then there's like synergy picks, and there was Death Knights.
God.
I was like, what the hell is happening?
And did not quit immediately again.
Yeah. Like the first time I saw Primordial Glyph, I remember I was telling someone, the first time I saw Primordial Glyph, I'm like, this thing reduces it by 2? How is this fair? I'm like, shouldn't it cost the same? Like discover it, yes, that's strong, and then it should cost the same, not reduce it by 2.
I mean, that's because it's not fair, and it did not take the community very long to figure that out.
So but the thing is, when I came back, I only played for half a month, and then my first full month back, I actually made the leaderboard, just playing like a high tempo style, sticking with Rogue. Things like that. So it was good enough. And then I thought like, oh, this, like nothing really changed. I guess, I can still play the game after like a year. And then the new expansion rolled out with Kobolds and Catacombs, and then the meta basically flipped upside down. All of a sudden, Priest and Hunter were good. I think Hunter was good for like 2 weeks or something at this point.
Yeah.
And then
Hunter
they nerfed the crap out of it.
Ridiculous for like the 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I mean, it's always good in the beginning of a meta, but those 2 weeks, it was
59%, right? It was 58%. It was almost 59% win rate.
It was one of the most oppressive things in the arena that Arena's ever seen.
Yeah. Just pick every flanking strike and you just win. I remember it went from classes that were traditionally good, like Warlock and Rogue, and then it flipped itself with Priest and Hunter, and then I all of a sudden like forgot how to play the game because I don't play these things anymore. I never played these classes because they're always bad traditionally, right? So during this expansion, I actually I lost about a win and a half off my average, so I dropped back down to like a high 5 player, and I basically just had to play these classes over and over again. It's kind of the same process with the whole Rogue thing. And I didn't make the leaderboard for maybe like 4 months. So it took a while for me to start getting the wheels going, especially with Priest, which is such an opposite play style, right? So, and now I feel much more comfortable playing like Priest. I feel more comfortable playing Hunter. So it's definitely expanded my abilities to play other classes. So I do feel a bit more comfortable, right? So it's a total learning process, and I mean it was fun. It's fun. It's fun to see results for sure. Yeah.
And I think you have a very stark example of this, because most people, if you say like a statement like, "Oh, if you learn another class, you'll get better with all classes," they're like, "Yeah, sure," but you get a lot better with all the classes actually if you truly master a new class that you had like kind of just been avoiding before. And that is like, very much the case with Rogue, also Priest, also Hunter is a whole new dimension as well. I think it's great that the one class that I think may be the exception to this rule, and I'm sure people in Twitch chat watching this or people listening at home are there's going to be a few players who are like, what? No, this is the most skill, like, I learned so much playing this class. But I feel like Shaman is the least like applicable thing to any other class. Like
I totally agree.
I've focused on shaman before for like a month or two, just to like try to be like, yeah, I need to get my shaman better. And afterwards, I'm like, what did I learn? Like, to be better as shaman, yes, but that's kind of it. Like, I don't feel like I'm applying this to anything else. I'm better at reading shamans after that, but it's very specific. Whereas every other class, I feel like I'm picking up like general like tempo, card advantage, reach, survivability, like all that kind of like getting deeper and deeper into that.
I agree. I mean, shaman's kind of it's one of the classes I kind of have avoided a lot too. I don't have too much experience playing shaman, um, but I agree with what you're saying about it.
Yeah, some people are just like, oh yeah. Like if you play paladin, then you get better at shaman. If you play shaman, you get better at paladin. It's like maybe 2 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
not
Like
these days.
when their playstyles were more similar, and these expansions have drifted them so far apart now. Yes, like what their hero power does is put a body onto the board, but the support cards and how the class is played nowadays, especially, is just so night and day, right?
Mhm.
No, I totally agree. It's like if you play shaman, you can a lot of the basics of Hearthstone, the sort of foundational core for all classes, you can build upon that. But play style and just sort of like the totems are weird, right? It's like
Totems
the
are so
value of a
weird.
totem are so situational, and you just get to learn the value of an RNG totem at that time, at that turn. Like, so like you don't have the consistency of the paladin hero power as well. So it's like it's so funky. But no, I completely agree.
So skillful RNG totems.
Oh my gosh, right? It's like, well, let's hit the spell totem, and then when you have like 5 injured minions, like, well, I hit a heal totem. Guess 2 mana, free heal 5. That's pretty cool. Um, so yeah. I think that's good. And then Boozor, after you struggled more, this is pretty recent, right? This is
Yeah.
like earlier this year, and
Mhm.
then you just became number 1 NA.
Well, I guess like Witchwood. So what the turnaround was basically the Witchwood um, expansion when it's kind of rotated out the priest meta, and it went back to a more tempo driven meta. So I saw improvements as soon as that whole priest meta rotated out. I made the leaderboard probably 2 more times during the Witchwood expansion. So I was already seeing quite a bit of improvement in my raw play. And then when Boomsday came out, I think I basically peaked. I just peaked at the right time. So and any draft I pick, regardless of deck quality, I know no real decks stood out in terms of like crushing quality. But every deck I played, it just worked, and you know things were just going right. And you need a lot of things to go right. You need a lot of luck. You need a lot of skill. You need a lot of RNG, like all sorts of stuff to go right. So it just lined up properly, and here I am, number 1. So
Cool.
it's a good story. I don't know. It's yeah, it feels good. It feels good. So to have all that work and hours and stuff actually result in something that you can, but yeah.
Yeah, this is what I want people to hear as well. Sort of like the struggles, right? We're here, we're celebrating your number 1. But like the most important thing is for all of you listeners out there. It's like, dude, you could be averaging like 3 wins right now, and then look at what Boozor just did, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is a guy who struggled and then was like, no, I want to get better, and here's how I got better, and now he's just number 1 NA, and this is after you took like 10 months off, right?
Yep.
In the
Yep.
middle of that.
Yep. So it's about a 1-year anniversary now. I basically came back about a year ago after taking almost about 10 months off. So
Cool, man. That's awesome.
yeah.
So once again, huge congrats. So now that you have made number 1 arena, we think you are very well equipped to kind of just talk about the leaderboard in general, because this isn't the first time you've done the leaderboard, right? You've done it a few times. You've gone for it. What's your take on it? Because we've had this for almost 2 years now. Like, it's been almost 2 years of the leaderboard, It came out in January of 2017, right? So what are your thoughts on it now? Like, how applicable is it? And what do you think we can do to make it better?
I think first they should okay, first I think with these special events, they definitely can't include these special events into the same month as like normal runs. I think they should have like a separate maybe leaderboard for just events only. So they should definitely be more consistent with that kind of stuff. I mean, it would also even make sense if they had like these special events like as a full month thing so that you can have a full month to get used to them and then do a leaderboard attempt that way. I think the 30 runs, the requirement for 30 runs, I think is very restrictive for a wide population. But I do feel that if it was reduced to like say 20 runs, which is more reasonable, the variance on some of these win rates, I think it would be a bit too high. I think there should be a certain level of difficulty to even just qualify for the leaderboard. So I feel like 30 runs is probably about right. I think moving forward, I mean, I think people are putting less emphasis on the leaderboard. It's more like a personal goal. I know it's a huge goal and a huge accomplishment for people to best themselves or to make the leaderboard because, you know, frankly, it's not easy to do 30 runs if you are not a full-time player. If you have a job and stuff, it's hard to do 30 runs. Like you probably just be, you know, just be coming up to it per month, maybe one run a day. And if you mess up in the middle of that, you're done. So it's really hard. So I don't know. I think it's more important as a personal goal type of thing to measure yourself. But I don't see how, and plus they don't really provide any other incentive. Like they don't give you like I don't know anything like a card back or
Come
you know
on.
like give you something, man. Like, but so I don't know. I don't think they're looking too much into it. Like obviously it takes them freaking so long just to get the freaking get the leaderboard up. It takes them 2 weeks, and then half the time it's wrong. So they don't really care about it that much, right? So I don't see them putting too much effort into it. And I mean, it's better than before. Like I said, from 2016, there's
Oh,
no
yeah.
leaderboard. We had to rely on some random dude like writing down our stuff on a spreadsheet. You know, like
Oh
so.
god, I remember. There was a dude
I
who
remember that.
actually like added all of our stuff on the spreadsheet. And
Yeah,
like,
so
yeah.
you know, I remember that. So it's obviously better than that, but I mean, it's not much better. At least it's official. It's on the official site. But yeah, it's gonna be. I can't really think of anything right now that they can really do. So
Yeah, no, I mean the 30 run one is it means you have to be dedicated, right? Like in a way that like I haven't been able to be that dedicated in over a year to actually playing the game. Like I had my own I had I think like 412 wins in 5 runs or something. Not at the very beginning of Boomsday, but like somewhere in that like first week. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, maybe I should try to go for the leaderboard. And then I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh god, because it started pretty much in the middle of the month. It's like, I have to do like more than 1 run per day from here on out, and then it has to be like, you know, perfectly lined up. I can't have like too many dips. And I was like, I guess it's just it takes so long. And this is me, right? Like I stream and I actually have like obligations to play this game, and it's still a lot for me because I have a day job and all
exactly.
that stuff. So I can only
Yeah.
imagine like for most people, even if they're like really good at this game, that you know they may go for it now and then to like see how high they get, but that it's like the leaderboard is just not a monthly thing unless you are very very dedicated.
Maybe they could do something like maybe like a 3 month leaderboard or something like that
Mm-hmm.
over like 50 runs or something. Because like it benefits like you know heavy volume streamers. They'll play like 150 runs in like or actually maybe 200 runs in like 3 months, and then they'll take the best 50. Whereas like a more casual player can spread 50 runs over 3 months and then do it that way. But I think for 3 months, the commitment for 3 months, I think might be too much for some people. So then they probably want to see more instant
Yeah.
results, right? So 1 month I feel is probably correct. So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to satisfy everyone, right? So
Yeah, I've heard this complaint on the constructed side as well. Because right now you have this time frame, right? For arena and constructed, it's like,
Mhm.
what can you do in a month?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of complaints on the constructed side of they're just like, look, it's a mad dash, a kind of, to get up there and then you fly, and then they're like, you do it over again, and the churn is just a little bit too much. I know some
Well,
constructed players feel that.
I've been
So
saying this since like God, like the very beginning. Like I thought, because like 1 month is a silly amount of time to make a season. Like when they make another game, even like Overwatch, they know a season should not be 1 month. Like
Overwatch,
Diablo, a
Diablo,
season
yeah.
should not be 1 month. By the way, Boozor has some accomplishments in Diablo 3 too.
I have a small accomplishment in Diablo, and I used to be proud of that, but now Boozor is, get it.
And
Yeah.
now Merps
Wait.
compares his Diablo accomplishments with Boozor's
Yeah.
Diablo 3
Boozor,
accomplishments.
do you play hardcore?
No, I don't. I used to
okay,
play non-seasons.
Then invalid.
Oh, okay. Hardcore mode. I never played. I can't. I wouldn't be able to stomach a death in hardcore mode for sure.
No, that's when you feel the most alive, man. Oh my gosh. Okay, good. See, I thought Boozor was a better D3 player, but he doesn't even really play D3 since it's softcore. So that's fine. No, okay. So Boozor, like we can't mention it without you telling us some of your accomplishments. So tell us about some of your D3 records, man.
Oh, so I don't know. I played D3 pretty heavily. Like I didn't. I think in one season I got first place 4-man, like second place 3rd-man, and then third place 2-man. Like it's so it's like in North America, right? So it's they're obviously like really up there, and I think we were only 4-man team to clear a certain level of Rift. I don't remember what it was at that time, but yeah, I mean it was fun. And then the thing was there was a constant battle against bots, so I never used a bot, so I had to farm all my gear and experience by hand, which is actually really crazy. So when you're competing against guys that get stronger by using bots and they play 20 hours a day, when you can only realistically, humanly play like 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, even 8 hours is a lot, right? So it's at that point I just felt it was time to give it up after achieving top 3 basically in 3 very significant statistical leaderboard categories. So I just thought it was time to hang it up. I haven't loaded up Diablo in 2 years, so yeah, it was fun. It was fun. A lot of hours.
When's the last time you loaded up Diablo, Merps?
I don't remember.
We're
been
all
like
sitting
2
here
years.
like former D3 players.
Yeah. Oh, so Boozor, I for in season 2, I was for like a small amount of time because I didn't end the season as number 1, but near the end of the of season 2, I was number 1. I was the number 1 hardcore wizard for like greater rifts.
Wizards for life. Wizards for life.
Dude, yo, that Firebird, man. That Firebird. Firebird Furnace? Yeah, yep. Firebird Furnace all the way.
Yeah, Firebird Furnace. I don't think you were. Maybe next season it was the Hydra. It was the Hydra build.
Yeah.
Were you there for that? Yeah, the Hydra build.
Well, I kept on playing until I just didn't play anymore. I thought I would keep on playing a lot, but D3 is no D2. Anyways. Okay, so this is
back to Hearthstone. But before we go back to Hearthstone, if people are interested in Diablo, something's happening at BlizzCon in like a month. I'm very freaking excited, even if they just give me a splash screen and say D4 and be like, maybe in 3 years. I'm down. Okay, so the seasons when it comes to leaderboards, like 2. I think 2 is a freaking great number, especially for something like Hearthstone that comes out with 3 expansions a year. That means each expansion is 4 months. Maybe not even like go by the actual calendar month. Maybe just go by like the 60 days after the release, and then all the other days until the next release. Right now you have 6 seasons. If 1 a month is just a little bit too hardcore for most people and like really wears them out with the churn, you double it. Why is Blizzard not doubling it? That's like their go-to move, right?
That's true. Either have it or
double it. That's their balancing. This is a old school D3 joke. One of the devs.
I think they could try 1 month with 20 runs, but I think it would benefit the high volume players too much. So the gap between the best players and players barely making it might be higher, I feel.
I mean, the variance is just so high with 20 runs. Like
Yeah.
having, you know, I mean, we've all done a bajillion runs before. If you look at like any situations in which you can get 20, I'm like, I've gotten more than 10 wins per run in a 20 run series without like actively trying, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then, but you look at 30 runs, and if I don't actively try, there's no way I'm gonna hit even 9. Like,
Yeah.
the swings are so different. It's so huge. I actually
Yeah,
think 20
and at
runs.
that point, it's like the win rate or the win average is not as important as your rank among your peers, right? So
Mhm.
it's, you know, in your region or whatever. Even comparing win rates right now across regions, it doesn't really make that much sense because every region is different, right? So you just go by rank. That's the most consistent way of comparing. But you know,
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Adwick, did you have more about the leaderboard?
No. You have anything else, or are moving on to like
All right.
Boozer's actual secrets
Yes.
that we will now delve into and make sure everybody listening to this podcast knows his Boomsday secrets, and we can all get 8.8 wins per
Guaranteed
month.
everyone next month will be number one NA. Oh
We're
my
all gonna be
gosh.
tied at 8.8.
All right. So, Boozer, as you can see from the screen, Adwick to Promise, top secret tips to win in typical clickbait fashion. What we want to ask is sort of, look, from your write up, I think you played 11 Warlock and 10 Rogue, or maybe it was flipped around, but you spammed those two classes a ton. Was there anything, out of the general guidelines and advice for those two classes that you figured out with those, or did you kind of just play them, by the books?
Generally, I think so. For Rogue, I think it's pretty well known strategy to forego drafting 2 drops and focusing more on 3 drops. I think that strategy actually works for the other classes as well to some extent. Like on turn 2 for Warlock, hero powering is actually not that bad,
Yeah.
especially if you have a couple board clears in your deck. I feel like 3 drops nowadays are just significantly stronger than 2 drops. So even if you coin a 2 drop into a 2 drop and all you do is just dagger into a 3 drop, the 3 drop has a good chance of killing both 2 drops. So you maybe take an extra two or three face damage, but the guy lost an extra card and the coin. So like those situations, I feel like with Rogue, picking up a couple ones, daggering on 2 is totally normal play now. And then obviously drafting good 3s, not 3s that are not at least equally statted. So when I mean equally statted, it has to be 3-3 for 3. Because 3-3 for 3 is actually not even that great, especially against a 3-4. But in Rogue, a 3-3 is basically a 4-3 with your dagger. So it does go a long way. So I think for Warlock, you can still kind of go that route, especially if you have, like, for example, Hellfire Defiles. Like, it's just AoE and taunts as well. So I think for myself, like, I tried to draft for any class that I have. I try to draft consistently. I don't focus too much on a specific archetype because I feel like there's quite a bit of variance in classes that show up in the arena. Like there's a lot of different classes and they all can play a slightly different playstyle. So if you run into Priest, you're playing a control matchup, but if you run into Hunter, you're playing a very aggressive matchup. And then you need a deck that basically can play against both and have a good chance of winning. So if you focus your deck too much to one side or the other, you might suffer in certain matchups. So I generally go with like a more mid-range approach for most of my drafts, including Warlock or Rogue. And things like, because there's less AoE and it's hard to remove things, I feel like things that can maybe double duty, minions that can double duty. So basically, like removal minions, like things like
Fire
Fire Plume
Plume?
Phoenix,
Yeah.
or Swift Messenger. I actually quite like
Mhm.
Swift Messenger because I feel it's like 3 things in one. It's like a large removal, small removal, and it's a 2/6 body for 4. So it's actually very playable in many situations. It's just you got to pay for the flexibility with a bit of variance like RNG, right? So those cards I feel that can do a bunch of things by themselves. Those cards gain value for me. So also like I said, like taunts are good because they technically interact with their board without actually interacting with their board. They force them to attack into it. And with lack of removals, taunts actually, they deal damage to their minions. So, if you have a deck full of taunts, it's actually really hard for them to deal with if they don't have the right cards like AoE and removal, right? So, healing's obviously important, especially for for rogue and warlock. So, healing allows both classes to stabilize, especially going second. That's the thing where you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose a lot of games going second because in a high tempo meta, you just end up losing games because you went second and there's nothing you can do about it. But things like healing and taunt preserve your life, give you a chance to win in the late game or in the later games, where the tempo advantage of having one less mana is going to be less advantageous, right? So I feel like I definitely feel like these little things like were very helpful. Like I feel like having like maybe 2 sources of healing, 6 to 8 points, at least several taunts in your deck are very useful. But I also feel like things like the drafting part of it, you can definitely look at it in a way where you don't want too many things that do specific things that are reactive. For example, like you don't want like crazed chemists, like a lot of them, because they're not good by themselves. They're great when you have the board, so when you're kind of winning. Um, but you don't want too many cards that can't be played by themselves. So you want to mix, right? So yes,
So
like
how many
maybe the
cards do
card
you
that's
want that can stand by themselves? Like how many cards do you
exactly.
want that are actually just like minions or like a simple removal out of
I
30?
would say like if I would say like the usual split is about you'll be lucky in a draft today to get 8 spells. So
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at about 22 minions slash weapons. Let's say you had 20 minions. If you have 20 minions, you're probably
Mm-hmm.
looking at least a 50-50 split just to have things that are playable by themselves without situational plays. So situational plays would even be things like Fire Plume Phoenix, which are
Mm-hmm.
not properly
Okay.
statted, right? But they do something. So definitely, like I find situations where you lose because you don't have the right minion to play, where you just need something to play, like just a 5/5 for 5, but instead you're playing a 4/4 for 5, and then you just end up losing the game. So you definitely need to balance out your draft that way. Like yes, you might be giving up some value, but I think to have those solid bodies do go a long way. Um, what else? A nice mix of removal is always good. So you don't want to focus too heavily on like, single target versus spread. And, just when you're drafting, it's definitely something to consider for sure.
Yeah.
I think for these classes, like, I think Warlock can play a bit heavier if you have the AoE. But I don't think Rogue should be played that heavy. If you're going to play a heavier Rogue, it's probably going to come from card draw.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I would view it. But Warlock can definitely play like heavier with less draw, but taunts are needed for an AOE obviously. So
Yeah, we were talking about Warlock before, and it's very much one of those. If you play Warlock heavy, you're taking some hits, and you're heavy, so you don't have to draw cards, which means you don't have to use your health, and that's how it works. If you're playing your Warlock light, you're gonna run out of cards, which means you have to hero power, and then you're losing the health that way. Like you pick, you're somewhere on the spectrum of lower mana cost cards, but you have to be on the board, or higher mana cost cards, so you don't have to use your hero power.
yep,
But then
yep,
you get to use your very powerful board play, and that's a warlock drafting
yeah,
like thing. Like warlock is very much it's it's draft dependent, not just because you have to know what you're doing when you're drafting the warlock and where it's going, like at least by like mid draft, but then you also have to get some of these cards offered to you, which
yeah,
you
exactly.
usually
So
will, but you won't more often than a lot of other classes. Like Rogue is by far the easiest to draft in today's meta
exactly.
because you don't need 2 drops. That opens stuff up, right? And then they have some pretty obvious choices. I think you're very flexible. You can miss a couple of picks in Rogue and still be fine. Whereas
Hmm.
Warlock, like figure out a plan and then you have to be able to execute the plan in the draft, which is not 100% your choice. It's also somewhat Blizzard's choice.
Yeah, I feel Rogue is definitely much more draft consistent. You can take like a deck full of mediocre cards and do very well with it. But Warlock, if you draft too heavy into a particular style, you do need some support cards. So it's different. Obviously, Warlock seems ridiculously powerful when the deck is stacked full of good stuff. So but yeah.
All right.
Cool. All right, so I think that's enough for Rogue and Warlock. Adopted, do you have more on those?
Nope. I was gonna do the same thing you're doing.
Okay, all right. So look, I think we talked a lot about these two, or the two of us have. Like we devoted an entire podcast to it. Other than that, I know we noticed in your write up that you did really well with Druid, right?
Yep.
So,
in my 30 run, I did six runs and 9.5 average. I feel like the drafting process that I went with it is more token, more aggressive. I feel like Druid consistently gives you things that push you into this playstyle, and also like having cards that the most frequent cards, like neutral cards, are Fungomancer and obviously Giggling Inventors. But these cards really synergize with Druid really well. With Power of the Wild and of course Savage Roar. I feel Savage Roar is probably under bucketed right now because I think the first one you basically pick it almost always because it's a huge win condition for this class. And also Power of the Wild gets picked very often. It's a really good good card. Synergizes well with that token strategy. For me personally, I looked at my Druid decks and they all perform well in this similar aggressive playstyle. They all had Savage Roar in them. And I think the key card that you probably need in these things, in these kind of style decks, is Reach. So you need a way to basically finish off your opponent. So you either need Reach, so Starfire, Swipe, Ultimate or whatever. And if you don't have those cards, you probably need card draw because you don't want to get stopped by a single Primordial Drake, right? So having a way to end games definitely goes a long way for this kind of drafting style because you're kind of all in-ish, right? Because if you lose to a turn 4 Defile, you can't really reload, right? So you either need Reach or stir your minions or a card draw. So you need to support your deck if you want to draft this way. But I do feel Savage Roar is critical for this kind of playstyle for sure.
Okay, Boozor, Starfire or Starfall in this playstyle? They're in the same bucket, by the way, listeners.
I'd like Starfire.
Yes. Okay. This is something because Twitch chat will always ask this question every time I make this pick. And oftentimes these days you do like you said, right? You go for a token play style, you do your Power of the Wilds, you do your Savage Roars. It's a very consistent play style right now, and it was even more consistent back last month whenever the meta's new, aggression works better because people are like a little iffy. It's not as tight. So whenever we're doing this, I would pick Starfire over Starfall, and people will be like, "What? But Starfall's so much better." Like there's just this community kind of idea that Starfall is just in a different league than Starfire, and that's just not true. Like we rate them only 3 points apart, and yes, Starfall is above Starfire by those 3 points, but the Starfire reach in a deck that needs a little bit of aggression and reach in a class that really outside of Swipe doesn't have any more reach that like unblockable reach. It's kind of the hidden, the third, maybe not third, but like one of your tertiary spells that's going to help you win a lot more games, right? Your primary ones being like your Savage Roar and your Power of the Wild. Your secondary ones being your tokeny cards, like it's everything from Giggling Inventor to like Living Mana. Not Living Mana. What do you call this card? It is Living Mana. But yeah, and if you were talking about Savage Roar being over bucketed, it's definitely, under bucketed. It's definitely very under bucketed. We have it rated as a 140, and it's in the 5th bucket. The 5th bucket being, where Fairy Dragon lives and is happy.
I'll say something about Starfire is that it's in a very awkward mana slot too. The 6 mana slot is a bit awkward. There's actually not too many competitive cards for the 6 mana slot, so having a big removal spell, basically remove a taunt or go face and allows some reload in this mana slot, I think it's pretty good, right? Because like Starfall kind of fits into the very competitive 5 mana slot. Like right now, there's not really that many good 6 drops, right? Like we got Sunwalker, Argent Commander, Frost Elemental. Like these are the common ones, right? But I guess Tending Tauren is pretty good. But other than those, you don't really have too much. So having a Starfire is not that bad, and especially in this playstyle, it works out very well. Reload and reach, right? So like I was saying.
Yeah. I mean, on the 6 mana card, you've skipped over the best card in the meta right now in your Mossy Horror. That's the
yes, those cards.
Because they always play Giggly on 5, so you always play Mossy on 6.
Doesn't matter what archetype you're running. Just stick a Mossy Horror in right now, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, those crazy tech cards. I feel like I jumped onto the Blood Knight bandwagon. I would say pretty early in the whole Boomsday thing, and I've honestly, whenever I play with it, I'm never disappointed.
Yeah.
At worst, it's a 3-mana 3/3. At best, it's like a turn 3 6/6 if the guy goes, Argent Squire or goes Lone Champ, right? You got a 6/6 on turn 3, or you got a 9/9 on turn 5 or turn, like it's almost never that bad. And Sunwalker's picked heavily, so I mean, I don't know. Even Silver Moon Guardian, it's in a really crappy bucket, and sometimes people still pick it like on turn 4.
Yeah.
So it's still a very draft. Like Blood Knight's just a really good card. I think it's better than MCT in terms of like a tech card. I don't know if it's better than Mossy Horror though. Mossy Horror is just really insane, especially if you land it on like anything. The swing from it is like game winning. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think they're in the same bucket. I don't remember, but
yeah, I think Mossy is clearly ahead of Blood Knight. Like for one, it destroys the whole minion, right? It doesn't just take their Divine Shield. And there's more 2 mana or below, 2 attack or below minions than there are your Divine Shields. So it's gonna be more flexible too.
Yeah. Dragon Slayer is still the best tech card in my opinion.
Such a silly.
It's so unfair. I don't. Well, like especially during the games in which I draft Hoarding Dragon, which I hate doing now, but I still draft it, and I'm just like every time I put it out, if I'm streaming, I sort of like sit back and I squirm a little bit. I'm just like, oh, don't do it. Like every single time I play the Hoarding Dragon, because I'm like, this is just the right play. I have to play this. If I'm so scared to play this, then I'm making the losing play, and I put it out. I'm just like, please don't. No matter what reads I have, I'm just like, I can't read a Hoarding Dragon, and it's like, the Dragon Slayer, because even when sometimes I'm just like, oh, he didn't drop a 3, I'm like, I'm good, but sometimes people just keep that thing.
That annoys me so much when that happens, because you say, oh, I don't have a read. I say I do have a read, and I'm wrong sometimes. Because they made a bad play.
To hold Dragon Slayer. It's probably incorrect to hold Dragon Slayer.
It's definitely incorrect. That's why I'm like, I'm gonna go with it. Like, I assume people make correct plays, which is usually right, but then they hold the Dragon Slayer, and then I go snipe, but it could really just be them not making a good play.
Snipe, yeah.
All right, no, I think that's really cool, and it also just speaks to the way the game is played right now, right? Very on the board, not much removal. Savage Roar, in which if you just math it out, even just having 1 minion on the board, and then you being Druid, I guess so it like that is 3 mana for +4 attack divided into 2 things, right? Like that 1 minion plus you. It's not great, but it's already like kind of acceptable. Yeah, fair. And then if you have 2 minions, it's already good, like quite good. And if you have more than 2 minions, like supreme value, right?
Yeah.
So, yep, Savage War, really, really freaking good card.
I think I passed my first Fungomancer for Savage Roar in the recent draft. It was actually I forgot why I did it, but there's a reason why I did it.
How good do you think Fungomancer is? Yeah. Like in this meta, like not just like for its bucket, but like kind of overall. Because you say you passed it for a Roar. I'm trying to find out where fungal.
I think it was the second Fungomancer, so it's probably that was probably the reason why. Because I wanted the Savage Roar in my deck.
Okay, so you would normally take the first Fungomancer over the first Savage Roar.
Yeah, and I think it was the position in our draft. I think it was in the last third of the draft. So I wanted the Savage Roar for sure, the guarantee, instead of the second Fungomancer. So it's yeah. It. I'm not saying it's correct, but I'm just saying that's how high I value the Savage Roar over a card as good as Fungomancer.
Yeah,
So.
no. I think if it the issue I have with Savage Roar right now is it's offered so much. So early on, like we have Savage Roar rated 14 points above Fungomancer and Druid. Now, and they kind of work the same way, right? You want something with the board on. Although Savage Roar is more reach than tempo, and Fungomancer is more tempo, you get that nice +2/+2. But I may not like if this is early in the draft. I don't have either a Savage Roar or Fungomancer. I don't know. I may take a Fungomancer over a Savage Roar just because I feel like I'm gonna get offered Savage Roar again, like almost certainly, right? Like
That sounds right. That feels right actually. So I would take the first Fungomancer though, because I feel Fungomancer is probably a more better, more consistent, more playable card than Savage Roar, obviously. So
and you're gonna get offered it less often, and nothing else is like similar to it. So.
Yep. All right. Hopefully that helps you guys out when you're thinking about which classes to pick. These are all three very good options here. And when you're going for the leaderboard, you kind of just need 4 to 5 like classes that you're very comfortable picking, right? Like 4 classes, you can expand it to 5, and then because the chances of you getting your 3 worst classes are like extremely low, so you can definitely get by with just 5. But anyways, I also wanted to briefly talk about the upcoming. What's up?
There's 9 classes.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm saying 5 classes are fine because the chances of you getting like the bottom are like really low, right? So yes, you can get like there's 4 in there, but still the chances of you getting those are like really low.
No, that's fair. I just want people to realize that it's not like we have 5 classes and then your 3 worst classes. There's one more class in there.
Well, no. That's different. Like, you're sort of making my statement more than what I made, right? If you just listen to what I said, I'm like, 5 classes is enough. And there's very low chances for you to get your 3 worst classes. Those are true. You're just trying to tie those together when I didn't try to tie it together. Boom. Okay. Anyways. So Boozor, it's been confirmed that we're having dual class arenas again for the event. We had this last year. Did you like it last year? Did you play it? I forget if you were even back during that time.
Back.
I was back. So this was probably right after my first leaderboard hit, and then I think dual class came, and I remember I struggled quite a bit. I don't know why. I was maybe picking the wrong combinations, but I remember I was running into some insane stuff. I don't even remember.
Were you picking a combination that did not involve rogue? Because that is a wrong combination.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I was probably just playing it more for fun. I didn't really take it too seriously, but it's fun for sure. But you're bound to see some crazy stuff, and it's going to be frustrating at times. But I look forward to a bit of a change. So yeah,
the combos are pretty insane. I remember like the first time that I saw some combos or I did some combos like what was it? Just Hunter's Mark and Mage. It's not even a combo. It's just like, 3 mana, kill anything.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's stupid. And with the spellstones nowadays as well, that's incredibly dumb, right? So for example, like Warrior Rogue, in which you still have the Rogue hero power, and Warrior cards are really good, right? And they cover up for a lot of Rogue's weaknesses. You can gain a lot of armor. Warrior has actual good weapons as well, not like Rogue's like small, little dinky, weird weapons. And they have some armor gain. But yeah, now you have spellstones. It's like, hey, whenever you equip a weapon, upgrade it. It's like, oh wow, I just hero power, and then you just naturally upgrade the spellstone. So yeah, you're gonna see tons of crazy stuff. But it seemed like you didn't exactly have the greatest time playing it.
I was just getting, I don't know, it was probably just frustrating, like losing to like crazy combinations that I would never even like. I would have to sit here and think about everything I could do. There's just so much stuff you can do, and all of it has varying degrees of insanity, right? So it's so I'm just gonna ride the wave and have fun with it. Like I'm not gonna shoot too hard for trying to win every game, just trying to have fun with it. So I'm kind of excited for like coupling like the priest spells with like a better hero power. I don't know which exactly that would be, and obviously like there's a crazy one with warlock and druid. That spell that the spell that makes you pay life for your next spell. I feel blood bloom.
Blood Bloom. Yeah.
Yeah, blood bloom plus UI would be pretty insane because you could do that on turn 2 or the
Oh
coin.
gosh.
Yeah, so you have a full hand, a 5/5, and then you deal 5 damage. I don't know. It'd just be insane. Like I don't know. I would like to see it. It would just be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
Yep. I think that. Well, anyways, I remember last year.
Last year it was Obsidian Shard in Rogue. With
Shard.
that other
the peddler.
one. Peddler.
The peddler.
Yeah, it's
peddler.
like all the stuff that deals with cards you play from another class, and you have all the cards from another class because you're 2 classes. So you just get free Obsidian Shards at whenever, and then you get Peddlers that reduce all your other cards by. It was kind of silly, but Peddler's gone.
Peddler was last year. Now it's all about Tess.
Yes, but that's a legendary, and we're okay with that. I feel like this year is going to be better. There's less game-breaking combinations. Because even if you look at something like Obsidian Shard, what happened last year was also that there was no bucket system. Now, Obsidian Shard is in the 7th bucket. You're just not going to see it a lot, even if it's an auto pick. So, you're going to see the crazy combos, but they're going to happen less consistently because a lot of the cards that are really good for the crazy combos are all in the 7th bucket because they suck, like in their correct classes. So what you really kind of go for a little bit more is like when Merps was saying about the Hunter's Mark Mage Hero Power thing, like just like small stuff like that to get your edge, I think will work better than going for these like the killer combos, unless you start with them, right? If you have them in the early draft, go for it. But you're just not going to get offered them enough with the bucket system.
I'm looking forward to having to decide between the insane cards, right? Like, do I take UI or do I take Vile Spine Slayer? Like,
God.
it's just like the insane cards. Just like, yeah, it'll be insane. I don't know. It'll be fun.
It will be fun. All right, that's cool. This is going to be something in which we'll talk about later on as the event comes forward. And who knows? They might throw a curveball at us this year. It might not be exactly the same as last year, right? All right, Adukta, time to talk about Card Good Bad.
Card Good Bad, Violet Worm. So we put our Card Good Bads onto the internet on our subreddit, Grinning Goat subreddit, and people can discuss this. And we picked Violet Worm to follow up our Fungomancer discussion last time because it's like the other high mana card that you kind of see everywhere now because it is fairly misbucketed. It's not even like too terribly misbucketed, but it's definitely misbucketed. It's in the same bucket as Fungomancer, which is the 5th bucket, which is the lowest bucket that you still see normal offering rates in. And we rate it a 127 overall, which is 5 points lower than a Fungomancer, but still, like I said, right, this is the Fairy Dragon bucket, where Fairy Dragon lives and is good, and that's a 113. So you're gonna pick Violet Worm a lot of the times, and it has a kind of a unique thing where among the neutral cards that are big, like that are 7 mana and above, this guy's just better than the other ones. So what do we Merps, do you want to talk about something like what people have been commented on, or do we want
let's toss it to Boozor first, and then I'll use some of the comments as like let's get Boozor's opinion first.
So obviously everyone knows Violet Worm's a pretty good card. So that's I guess the good part of it. The bad part of it is basically I feel like it's still an 8 mana do nothing card. So it's 8 mana 7/7 that comes down that can be ignored. So you can only have so many of these type of cards in your deck, right? So you need cards that, especially for 8 mana, you need some of these cards to do stuff. So I think the first one is totally acceptable to pick, especially in its bucket. It's better than Threshodon. It's better than Volcanosaur most of the time, especially on like your first option. So having one worm is good, but I think the second one or even other large minions like this that don't immediately impact the board is going to be bad. So I feel like having more than one worm, things like the worm are just not going to be as good, right? So
Mhm.
I like obviously cards like Primordial Drake, right? Like they do something when you hit them, like when you play them, and they cost a lot. Like other cards that do stuff would be like I don't know, even like Stormwind Champion, it affects
Mhm.
the board, right? Like just stuff like that.
Stormwind Champion affects the board. Bone Mare is a buff. Furious
Bullmare,
in
yeah,
at least
exactly,
taunts. Volcano Sword probably taunts if you needed to.
exactly. So
Sea Giant is not really that much mana,
it's like
especially in the
5
late
mana.
game. Yeah, right. Like you're not gonna get it out on turn 5 necessarily for 5
Yeah,
mana, but
it's
eventually
a
you're gonna
5
get
mana.
it out for low mana.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So one of the comments we have on our subreddit was from Crazy Herbs, and this is something that I agree with quite a bit. They say when this card is played against me, I usually take that as a sign that it's time to start going face. I've seen that a lot too, right? Where I'm just like, I think I'm prepared for what's about to happen, and then a Violent Worm gets dropped, and I'm just like, I don't really have a choice. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't interact with this. Like, this is a card in which it is so hard to actually interact with, right? And then I end up going face, and that's some of the power behind it, right? Because, like, you're sort of boxing your opponent and saying like this is really hard to deal with, so you kind of have to play in this specific way, and then now I can use this to potentially gain an advantage by screwing you over, right? But at the same time, there is that danger that you said by like, well, they will hit you in the face, so maybe that's not what you want.
And Violet Worm gets worse the more you kind of hold it off. Like your opponent's Violet Worm, it gets worse the more you hold it off because a lot of its power is in that death rattle, and the death rattle it doesn't trigger until it dies. And if you have these small taunts, or just if you don't care that you're taking 7 damage to the face, and your opponent really cares that you're dealing damage to them, they have to start really slowly removing your people and killing off their Violet Worm. And it takes a couple turns, and while they're doing that, on top of this whole normal death rattle thing, they have to add more minions onto their side of the board to contest the board. And the more minions they add on their side of the board without killing the Violet Worm first, the more you can kill the Violet Worm, and they get less like 1/1 worms. So it just all pushes in one direction, which is don't kill the
yeah.
Violet Worm, stall it if possible, and like I don't know, it's a weirdly designed card. I don't really like the interactions with it whenever I see it played on the board. It's more of a this game ends quicker kind of card, less of a this is a more interesting twist to make the game go on. So it kind of has its role, but when you see it a lot in the arena, you're going it's one of those cards that definitely warps the game right when it comes out in a way that like Furious Etin or Say to Thresh-It-On don't.
I think throwing throwing like a small taunt in front of it, even just stalling out for like 1 or 2 turns is pretty good. I mean, it's obviously an insanely powerful card, with a weird powerful effect that's delayed, right? So it's a different, yeah, it's different, but I think it's a really strong card. I think every deck should have a worm in it as to anchor it. I mean, it's hard to deal with. Like it fills your board, 14/14 of stats. Like it's nuts. So, not many things can cleanly kill it. Like maybe Lich King. Like Lich King would stop it, right? 7/7 into an 8/8, but there's not really that many big things that can just stop it like that. So
Mm-hmm.
It typically takes at least 2 cards,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
If you're going to deal with the entire thing, it typically takes at least 2 cards. And on average, probably like 2.5 or 2.7 cards. So that is the power of it. Now, Boozor, I need to ask you because one of the comments was, it talks about how it's great when you're ahead and it's not as great when you're behind. And then this person, Hoojanier, mentions it does get stonewalled so hard by Giggly Inventor. See recent VOD from Boozor. So what happened here? Like what was this?
I don't remember, but I remember probably like I played the Violet Worm on empty board, and the guy just plays Giggling Inventor. Probably
That's
it's
it.
just like that's it. I guess I lose. So I don't remember. It's just one of those cards. It's just yeah, Giggling Inventor is obviously a better card, right? It's just yeah,
Yes.
that's all I remember. But yeah, it's pretty
So
cool.
that was a story. Someone played Giggly Inventor and you lost A very
much.
familiar story.
Yeah. A very uncommon scenario. I'm sure no one has ever
Yeah.
experienced that. So
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
when you're like behind on the board, Violet Worm's not a bad play. It's usually a better play, I think, than when you're ahead on the board. Because when you're ahead on the board, especially if you have some board slots taken up, then it's kind of just an 8 mana 7/7 with a crappy death rattle. Like, you're not getting too much value out of it. On the other hand, if you're behind on the board and you can afford to take a couple hits, you play it and you have a choice, right? Like, they interact with it or they don't interact with it, and at least you force them to have a small taunt. Now, they could very easily have a small taunt, but it's a play. And when you're behind, most of your cards are not even plays, right? Most of your cards are like, well, I played a card. I hope they interact with it in a way that doesn't totally screw me over. Because otherwise, like, right, they have the initiative, they have everything. This card
I
at
think
least puts the threat on them.
I think it's still a better card when you're ahead though, because like if you're trying to come back after, if you're behind and you play the worm and then like they get stonewalled, you just lose. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a better win more card. Like it's a huge threat, right? So it's like if you have a threatening board plus the worm, it's like which one do you deal with now? Like you're just gonna eat 7 every turn. Like it's so.
All right. Cool. So I think that's about Worm. We all know it as like a really good card. I guess the question I'm wondering, look, everyone knows you should pick it because it's extreme value. When do you not pick it? Like in a draft, because kind of the general rule right now, it's so underbucketed that with a couple of exceptions, Fungal Mancer being one, you kind of always pick it. But what deck and what situations would you look at it and say, actually, no, like this isn't the pick here?
Maybe if it's late in the draft, like I was saying earlier, like if it's late in the draft and you have too many of these cards, that late game cards that you just play that don't really do anything. For example, like if you already drafted like a Thresh-a-Dawn or a
And
Volcano
too
Sword.
many of these cards is like more than one more of these cards.
Yeah.
Like, if you have 2 of these cards already, it's already way too much. If you have one more, it already means Violet Worm is not the best.
Yeah, I would say like 2 is probably all you want in most decks. Like with no effect. Like I'm talking like if taunt is an effect basically, right? So it's 2 cards that don't do anything when you play them. Like the worm would get a bit worse. Like and then so it gets a little hairy. Like I guess in priest you can kind of maybe get away with 2 worms and maybe some other stuff, but I don't know. It's a 8 mana 7/7, so you have to play it as such until otherwise, right? So, but yeah.
All right. So, Adukta, did you have more for card good bad?
Nope, that's it for card good bad. Violet Worm, good card, take it, but don't take too many.
Great advice. Great advice. All right. I had a quick question from the GOAT for Boozor. So, Boozor, right now there are quite a few cards that probably should be in the arena, but are not. Either they took it out or it's been Hall of Famed, right? And I just want to ask you, if you could insert back one of these cards, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Just trying to remember some of these cards.
I know the list is pretty freaking long.
Is it long?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of cards now, right?
Let me search this up.
You could do it.
So I feel like we should provide Boozor with these cards.
With a bit of a list, right?
Yeah.
I want I know the obvious one is like people would say Flappy Bird, but I think Flappy Bird is probably a bit too.
Ooh, wait, how is that obvious? I thought everyone hated that card.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
No, keep going, Boozor, because I want Flappy Bird back.
I'm okay with it, but
I don't know. Like I think it's a little bit too strong. But I mean, it's a neutral card. Maybe if they made it so that it doesn't show up that often, it might be okay. But generally, I don't like removing cards, like completely removing cards. I'd rather them just like adjust them by bucketing. But I'm actually not sure. Like,
so here I'm gonna start listing a bunch of cards really quickly. All right. These are all cards that are not in the arena, but they don't really have a reason not to be, except for maybe Flappy Bird. Okay, and I'm gonna skip over all the Death Knights, obviously. and the quests and the other random ones that are, attached to
Odd
a
and even
mechanic.
stuff.
Yeah. All that. Like, okay, Mark of Nature, Soul of the Forest, Savagery, Timberwolf, Starving Buzzard, Snipe, Mind Blast, Inner Fire, Lightwell, Ancestral Healing, Totemic Might, Dust Devil, Windspeaker, Sack Pact, Succubus, Sense Demon, Charge, Warsong Commander, Rampage. Those are the remove cards from Classic. And then there's a bunch of Hall of Fame cards, which are all the Hall of Fame cards.
Yeah, Sylvanas, Rag, Power Overwhelming, Ice Lance, etc.
Azure Drake.
Why would they remove that Druid card, Mark of the
Wild?
+4 attack?
This was back in the time when they were trying to do weird things with balancing, and they didn't have a bucket system. And Druid
fair.
was,
it's
Druid,
totally fair.
Yeah. I think Druid was not good enough, so they removed some of the cards that were performing poorly, and Mark of Nature was probably performing poorly.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's not a very good card.
I could see like Windspeaker like being okay, but I could see how it could be bad too. There's too many ways that you can abuse Windspeaker. But I don't know, of those cards, like I don't see like why like that Mark of the Wild or whatever is not in Arena. Like I don't care if it's in the Arena. Like none of these cards I really care about. They're just not really that good or busted, right?
Wow, I mean, someone's not a Treant Druid player. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, okay, fine. Those cards are, I guess it could be good. I don't know. With the tokens now, it's obviously insane, right? With like Necromancer and Giggling, obviously, you might as well make a Druid constructed card in a constructed deck in Arena, right? But good thing they don't have that card, I guess.
I think if you put Soul of the Forest back in into the Arena, it would be at lowest 5th bucket. Like just on performance, and we would rate it even higher than that because we, we're judging this for good players, and there's,
that card would be a big problem, I think, because like especially now with less AOE's, it's be a huge problem, I think.
Yeah,
so.
It has that same interacting with your board problem that Violet Worm has, right? Where they cast it, and you're like, well, I guess I'm not removing anything on my opponent's board because the 2/2 pops up every time I do it. So
I'm dead. Savage Roar.
Yeah. It'll definitely make Druid more dynamic to have that in there, but also probably more frustrating. I don't know. What about you, Merps? What would you do?
I definitely think Soul of the Forest, right? Like maybe that pushes Token Druid a little bit too much. I like it. Also, I just like Snipe.
Yes.
It introduces something for hunters in which right now, okay, so whenever a hunter plays a secret, all you care about is which minion do I attack first, and what and sort of do I or which minion do I use to attack first, and what am I attacking, their minion or their face, right? You like all other considerations are not considerations. Those are the only two sort of questions.
Well,
you
also,
ask
am
yourself.
I allowed to play 3 cards in a turn?
Yeah, okay. But like, let's not give too much thought to that one, right? The instances in which, number one, you play 3 cards and then, it's a rat trap anyway, so low. So primarily it's those 2 questions that I listed. But yeah, I want this to be more of a thing as well, right?
It's a huge thing if you put Snipe back, because now, like, what do? You oftentimes try not to trigger the Hunter traps, especially if it's a face trap, right? But now, when you're trying not to trigger the face traps, you still have to like sort of play around Snipe depending on what you're playing with. So you've just given all the Hunter face traps another dimension. And sometimes you really do want Snipe in your deck, especially if you have something like an Eaglehorn Bow. Like you want the secret to trigger immediately, and Hunters don't really get that right now. It's a little bit more support also for Spellstones. Not that Spellstones need more support, but a crappy secret that is somewhat playable is right there. Yeah, no, I want Snipe back too.
Yeah,
I think Snipe is pretty good. I wish, like, on the topic of secrets, I wish Rogue had a bit more secrets, because right now the Rogue secrets are just too easy to play around.
That was a terrible idea to give Rogue secrets.
It is a bad idea.
It was just like design-wise, it was like, oh, we're gonna do it, and then they're like, oh, are Rogues gonna get more secrets? And they're like, no. Like very pointedly in the beginning, they said that. Like when they were releasing the secrets, they're like, Rogues are not gonna get any more secrets, and everyone was like, so just those 3, and they're like, yep.
Yeah, that's bad. So They need to add like 2 more secrets, make it a bit more difficult to play around, because right now the rogue secrets is just terrible.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. The first question you ask whenever a new secret comes out is like, you almost don't even care what that secret does. It's like, how does this fit into the algorithm, the decision sort of like tree that people think about, right? How does this fit in with how the other secrets box players in? Like, that's the most important thing. And right now, there is no sort of like mind games with Rogue. There's no boxing. It's just the only one that matters is sudden betrayal, right? And then you have like the other ones just don't really matter. They don't make decisions that hard, which happens like, and this happens when you have only a few secrets. So like, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's really weird. And if they're not doing anything more with it, it's sort of like, why did you do it in the first place, right?
Yeah,
because it's constructed. It's all constructed focus, and in constructed, it's not like anyone thinks about secrets anyway. You know what your opponent's playing.
You do know.
So it's not really a secret. It's more like a thing that triggers on your turn. Like, they might as well show you the secret. It doesn't matter. And so that's how they designed it. Like, there's no arena considerations in the design of Rogue Secrets. I think that much is clear. And that's their thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that is it for the stuff I wanted to talk about. But before we ended, Boozor, we want to give you an opportunity to kind of like say what you want. All right, not exactly anything you want to say. We haven't vetted this exactly yet. But first of all, if people want to soak up more arena knowledge, if they want to see the master at work, where can they catch you?
I currently stream on Twitch under name Boozor TV. So if you guys want to check out some rank 1 misplays, drop by, give me a follow. Hopefully I see you guys around. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying in my whole thing, like I feel very grateful and like grateful, but I don't feel like I'm like I'm number 1, but I'm just a regular I'm just a regular guy, right? I'm just a regular guy, and I think anyone can. I hope my story inspires, and I think anyone can, if they put in enough time, they can definitely get the right things to happen, and then get enough RNG in 1 month. In the grand scheme of things, 1 month is still a very short period of time in your entire career, right? Or playing Hearthstone. So if they get the right snapshot of your success in 1 month, you could be top 10, number 1 as well. You just have. I think everyone that makes the leaderboard has a shot at it, because there's just so much variance involved per month that anyone can do it. So yeah, so I hope my story is encouraging. I hope you guys enjoyed Hangout. I really want to thank the goats, Merps and Adquita, for the very awesome chance to be on their show and have a chat. And I hope you guys learned some stuff. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you for coming on, man.
All right. Well, that's Boozor TV, Boozor, as we established in the in the beginning of the stream. Yeah. Until next time, then. This is Adwicta.
This is Merp. See you guys.
Bye.